Please, Mr. Cross, don't go upstairs. I'm begging you, sir. Don't do this to yourself." The desperate plea sliced through the crisp Boston morning like broken glass. Adrian Cross froze on the stone porch of his Beacon Hill estate, suitcase resting by his polished shoes. In his right hand, a bouquet of white lilies trembled just slightly, not from the chill, but from the hand that held them. He had imagined this moment differently. In his mind, there should have been quiet surprise, his wife's soft laughter echoing down the hallway. A robe clutched to her chest as she ran to him, shocked to see him home early from San Francisco. Maybe a kiss, maybe a joking complaint about him ruining her carefully planned morning. Not this. Not a locked door that opened slowly, and a woman standing there barefoot like a human barricade. Naomi Brooks filled the doorway like a trembling sentinel. She wore a faded gray house dress and a white apron still dusted with flour. Her dark skin gleamed with a faint sheen of sweat, curls escaping the scarf tied hastily around her head. Her chest rose and fell too fast, as if she'd run through every corridor of the house just to get to that door before he did. There was fear in her eyes, not nervousness, not the quiet deference she'd carried for the 3 years she'd worked for him. Real fear, raw, shaking, feral. "Naomi," Adrian's voice dropped, caught somewhere between confusion and irritation. "What on earth? Please." Her voice cracked in the middle, her hand tightening around the doorknob until her knuckles whitened. Just give me a minute, sir. 1 minute. Don't go in. Not yet." He shifted the lilies from one hand to the other. The petals rustled against the tissue paper. "I just flew in from San Francisco," he said, trying to keep his tone calm, controlled. "It's 6:30 in the morning. Why are you answering the door like this? Where's Celine?" At his wife's name, something flinched across Naomi's face, like a bruise touched without warning. "She's upstairs," Naomi whispered. "Sleeping, I think." Her gaze faltered, skipping away from his. "But please, Mr. Cross, I swear to you, you don't want to go up there right now." The words landed wrong, like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong place. Adrian studied her. Naomi was not the meddling kind. She did her work with quiet precision, floors immaculate, linens folded with military care, meals warmed exactly at the time requested and never sooner. She never spoke unless spoken to. She never lingered. She never raised her voice. He had seen her endure late nights, extra guests, last-minute charity dinners, and Celine's sharp remarks without so much as an eye roll. If there was anyone in his house who would quit rather than confront, it was Naomi. And yet here she stood, barefoot, shaking, blocking his way. His mouth ghosted into a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Is there a gas leak?" he asked. "A burst pipe? An emergency? A burglar I need to know about?" It came out half joking, meant to puncture the tension, to make this morning normal again. Naomi's fingers trembled against the doorframe. "No, sir," she said, shaking her head hard. "Nothing like that. It's just—" Her voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. "It's what you might see that'll break something inside you." Adrian's heartbeat stuttered in his chest. "What did you say?" Naomi lifted her eyes to his, dark brown, clouded with fear, and something else he couldn't name. Guilt, grief, resolve. He didn't know which terrified him more. "Move aside, Naomi," he said, this time quieter, but edged with authority. She didn't. Her shoulders trembled, her knees wobbled, but she stayed where she was, barefoot and shaking, blocking the man who paid her salary, who had once paid for her younger sister's community college tuition without telling anyone, who trusted her with his security codes, his alarm system, his home. "I'm trying to protect you, sir," she said, "and that's all." "Protect me from what?" Silence. The kind of silence that feels like the second before a bridge collapses. Adrian stepped forward. He didn't shove, he would never, but he placed his hand gently, firmly on her shoulder, trying to guide her aside. "I appreciate your concern, Naomi. I really do. But this is my house. My wife is inside, and I intend to see her." "No." The word tore out of her like something that had been strangled for too long. Her hands shot out, palms flat against his chest. The lilies rocked, petals brushing his coat. Her breath hitched. "Please, sir, I beg you." Before he could react, her legs buckled. She dropped to her knees on the stone porch, arms wrapping around his leg in a grip that belonged more to panic than respect. Her forehead pressed against his shin, fingers digging into the cuff of his dress pants. "I'm on my knees in your doorway," she sobbed. "Don't go up them stairs. I ain't trying to disrespect you. I ain't losing my mind. I'm trying to save you." The sight hit him harder than the morning air. Naomi, who always moved like a shadow, was now the loudest thing he had ever seen. Adrian's pulse spiked. A wave of unease rolled through him, cold and thin as ice water. He had walked up this porch 1,000 times before. Normally the door opened to warmth, to music, to Celine's perfume drifting down the hallway like invitation. Today it opened to a woman begging him not to cross it. "Naomi," he said hoarsely, "get up, please. I don't want you on the ground." She wouldn't move. "If I let you walk in there," she whispered, voice shaking, "I'll never forgive myself. I've seen enough heartbreak in my life, sir. Don't make me stand here and watch another one when I could have stopped it." Emotion flared sharp in his chest. Confusion, irritation, fear. None of them had anywhere to go. He tugged his leg gently, trying to lift her without forcing her. "Let go. Not unless you promise." He pulled harder this time, more out of panic than anger. His heel jerked on the stone. Her fingers slipped. Naomi's knees scraped forward. Her elbow slammed against the edge of the porch with a sickening crunch. She gasped, the sound small and sharp. A thin line of blood appeared on her brown skin, bright against the gray morning. Adrian almost dropped the lilies. "Naomi," his voice shook. "I didn't. I... Are you hurt?" She sat up slowly, cradling her arm, tears streaking down her cheeks and mixing with the dust on her skin. She wiped her face on her sleeve without looking at the blood. "It's okay," she whispered, air rattling in her lungs. "Hurt ain't new to me." She lifted her eyes back to his, and there was no apology in them, only desperate, aching honesty. "But it don't compare to what's waiting for you up there." He stared at her, at the blood, at the tears, at the sheer devotion in her pleading, and something inside him shifted. "What are you trying to tell me?" he asked, and now his voice trembled, not with anger, but with a terror he had no name for. Naomi's hands shook as she gripped the doorframe and pushed herself to her feet. "I can't say it," she murmured. "If I do, she'll ruin me." "Mrs. Cross." Her throat locked around the name. Celine. His wife's name felt suddenly heavy in his mouth. "Naomi." His voice flattened. "Have you seen something?" Her silence screamed louder than any admission. She inhaled shakily. "Mr. Cross," she said at last, voice barely more than air. "You walk up them stairs right now. You ain't coming back down the same man. That's all I can say." He didn't blink, didn't breathe. Inside his chest, something old and instinctive began to crumble. That quiet little voice people call gut feeling woke up too late, banging on the doors of his reason. "Move aside," he said. This time he didn't say her name. Naomi swallowed hard. Her whole body trembled. And then, very slowly, she stepped back just enough for him to pass, one hand pressed to her bleeding elbow, the other gripping the edge of the doorway like a lifeline. The house swallowed him in silence. The scent of vanilla candles lingered faint in the air, mixed with fresh coffee and something floral he couldn't place. On the hallway wall, a framed photo watched him, his arm around Celine at their vineyard wedding in Napa. Fairy lights glowing above them, their faces open and young and foolishly sure that forever was easy. His footsteps echoed too loudly on the marble floor. Behind him he could hear Naomi's softer steps following, one hand pressed to her arm, her breath so quiet it barely stirred the air. He stopped at the foot of the staircase. "You still don't want me to go up?" he asked, his voice thin. Her answer came soft and broken. "No, sir." Her eyes shone. "I ain't ever wanted something less." He didn't reply. He started climbing. The lilies slipped from his fingers halfway up, tumbling silently down the stairs, white petals scattering across the polished steps like fallen promises. He didn't even look back. At the top, the bedroom door stood half closed, a sliver of soft daylight cutting across the carpet. Adrian pushed it open. The world cracked. Celine was there, tangled in sheets that still smelled like her favorite perfume. Beside her, another man, bare-chested, familiar, jerked upright, eyes wide. It was Lucas Hale, his best friend since college, the man who had held the rings at their wedding, the man who had toasted them as a love story Wall Street couldn't even price. For a split second, everything went silent. Then sound came rushing back like a wave. "Adrian!" Celine's voice pitched high, brittle. The sheet clutched at her chest didn't cover the betrayal on her face. His lungs forgot how to work. Air scraped in his throat and vanished. A crushing weight slammed into his chest, iron hard and merciless. The room spun, the edges darkening, as if someone had turned down the dimmer switch on his life. He reached for the doorframe, but his hand never got there. The floor rushed up too fast. Behind him, Naomi's scream tore down the hallway, a sound that didn't belong in any civilized house. It wasn't just a scream of shock. It was the kind of sound someone makes when they watch a life split clean in two. She stumbled into the doorway, one hand pressed to her bleeding elbow, the other flying to her mouth as Adrian's body hit the carpet with a dull thud. "Sir, Mr. Cross," she cried, dropping to her knees beside him. Her hands shook as she slid one under his head, the other pressing to his chest, searching frantically for the rise and fall. He was breathing, but barely, shallow, ragged, fragile. Lucas backed away until his shoulders hit the far wall, his face ashen. He fainted," he stammered. Naomi's head snapped toward him, eyes blazing through tears. "You hush," she spat, voice suddenly fierce, all fear burned away by righteous fury. "You don't speak in this room, not after what you did in this house." Lucas faltered, mouth opening and closing uselessly. Down the hall, another door creaked. Celine appeared fully now, wrapped in a sheet like a costume, her hair a tangle of luxury spilling over her shoulders. Her expression wasn't horror. It was calculation, wearing panic like borrowed perfume. "Naomi, what?" Her words died when she saw Adrian on the floor. "Oh my God." Stay right there, ma'am," Naomi snapped, the honorific drained of any respect and filled instead with truth. Celine took a step forward. Adrian, baby, don't you touch him," Naomi hissed, pulling his hand into hers like a lifeline. "You done enough." For a moment the room froze. Morning light streamed through the window, soft and golden, painting the scene like some cruel masterpiece. Marriage bed, broken man, two women kneeling at his side. One guilty, one praying. Naomi's hands fumbled for her phone. She dialed with the quickness of someone who had memorized emergency numbers long before she'd had a stable address. 911, she gasped. "My employer? He collapsed. Please send paramedics fast. He's breathing, but it ain't right. Please." Her voice cracked, but her hands stayed steady on his chest, feeling every faint rise and fall like it was the only thing tethering him to this earth. When she hung up, she leaned close, whispering against his ear. "Sir, don't you go, you hear me? I'm right here. You ain't alone. I won't let this house swallow you." Behind her, Lucas moved toward the door. I should go." "You run if you want," Naomi said without looking at him. "But God sees." He fled. Barefoot, shirt half-buttoned, he disappeared down the hall like cowardice given legs. Celine tried again to step closer, reaching toward Adrian's face. Naomi blocked her hand in midair without even glancing up. "You ain't got the right." Tears finally spilled down Celine's cheeks, not because she saw his pain, but because she saw her own world slipping. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she sobbed. "Naomi, I swear." "You swear," Naomi repeated, a bitter laugh breaking through her breath. "You meant every minute." Downstairs, the front door opened with a frantic bang. "Mr. Cross," a voice called. Darius, the driver. He had come running after Naomi's panicked call that Adrian was not okay, not right. "In here," Naomi shouted. Heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. Darius appeared in the doorway, eyes widening at the scene. His employer collapsed, the maid clutching him, the wife clutching a sheet. "No," he whispered. "Help me get him up," Naomi said, voice firm despite the tremor. "We ain't waiting. He needs a doctor now." Together, they lifted Adrian as carefully as if he were made of porcelain. Naomi guided them with small, frantic instructions. How to hold his neck, how to keep his chest elevated. which way to turn, so his feet cleared the doorway. Celine followed at a distance, a ghost trailing a disaster she'd caused. As they carried him down the staircase, Naomi glanced once at the steps she'd tried so hard to block, the threshold she'd thrown her whole body against. If she had screamed louder, if she had locked the door, if she had thrown herself down these stairs and forced him to stop, would any of this be different? Outside, the crisp autumn air slapped her face. The world had the audacity to go on. Leaves rustling, a neighbor's sprinkler ticking, a dog barking somewhere down the street. As if a man's heart hadn't just been shattered upstairs. They eased Adrian into the back of the sleek black SUV. Naomi climbed in beside him, pulling his head onto her lap, fingers pressed to his sternum, claiming every breath like a guard dog claims territory. She whispered prayers between sobs. Not fancy, rehearsed lines, but small, gritty words she'd learned listening to her mother pray over unpaid bills and empty fridges. "Don't leave, sir. Don't let heartbreak take you. You got too much left to build." Celine reached forward from the front passenger seat, trying to touch his arm. Naomi's hand shot out again, blocking her. "You sit back, ma'am," she said, voice steady now. "The only thing breaking here should be your conscience." The car sped off. The street blurred into streaks of gray and red lights. Naomi didn't blink. If she did, she was afraid she'd miss a breath. By the time they reached the hospital, nurses were already at the curb, alerted by the dispatcher. Adrian was pulled onto a stretcher, oxygen mask pressed to his face, monitors clipped to his chest. "Family only," a nurse said gently, trying to nudge Naomi back. She swallowed hard. "Ain't nobody in this world care for that man more than me right now," she wanted to say. Instead, she did what she'd done her whole life. She stepped back because rules were rules, and rules had fed her, housed her, and kept her out of worse trouble than this. But she didn't leave. Naomi planted herself in a plastic chair in the waiting area, elbow bandaged hastily, hoodie sleeves stained with blood. His and hers. Her hands twisted together in her lap until her knuckles turned white. Celine sat far away, legs crossed, arms locked around herself, phone clutched in her hand, like a lifeline to a world that might still believe her version of the story. Naomi didn't look at her. She stared at the stained tile floor and whispered into her clasped hands. "Lord, don't let this be the end of him," she breathed. "Good men don't fall easy. Don't let heartbreak strike him down when he ain't done yet." Minutes stretched into hours. Finally, the double doors pushed open. A nurse stepped out, eyes soft. "He's breathing," she said. "Stable for now." It was emotional shock. His blood pressure crashed, but we've got him. Naomi's body sagged with relief, a sound leaving her chest that was half sob, half prayer. Celine let out a choked cry. Naomi didn't turn. She pressed her palms together, tears slipping down her face in silence, because there was still breath in Adrian Cross's chest. And where there was breath, there was still time. For truth, for justice, and for a quiet black maid who had thrown herself at a door to finally stop letting other people decide what broke and what healed. The waiting room smelled of disinfectant and burnt coffee. Naomi sat on the edge of a plastic chair, both hands wrapped around a styrofoam cup she had forgotten to drink from. Her elbow throbbed beneath the fresh bandage. Her knees ached from how long she had stayed on the floor beside Adrian before the paramedics pulled him away. Across from her, a television muttered morning news to people who were too tired to listen. Somewhere behind the double doors, monitors beeped and shoes squeaked on polished floors. Celine sat in another corner of the room, wrapped in a designer coat and a cloud of guilt she kept trying to tone down into sorrow. Her mascara had smudged. She dabbed at it every few minutes, worried more about the reflection in her phone than the man whose life was being measured in oxygen and blood pressure. Naomi could feel her there without looking. Every time Celine shifted in her seat, a fresh wave of anger rolled through Naomi's chest. At the reception desk, a nurse glanced over, eyes lingering on the dark-skinned woman in the plain clothes instead of the one wearing diamonds. That was how it always went. When the doctor finally pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the room, both women stood at once. He was in his 50s, tired lines etched into the corners of his eyes, white coat flapping slightly as he walked. His expression was serious but not hopeless. "Family of Adrian Cross," he called. Both women took a step forward. He is my husband, Celine said quickly, one hand pressing to her chest. The doctor nodded and turned to her, his gaze flicking past Naomi as if she were part of the furniture. Your husband experienced what we call an acute stress response, the doctor said. His blood pressure crashed. He lost consciousness. The good news is that his heart itself appears structurally sound. No clear signs of a classic heart attack. The scans look better than what we feared at first. Naomi exhaled a breath she did not realize she had been holding. Her vision blurred. So he is fine, Celine asked. The doctor hesitated. He is stable, he corrected. That is not the same thing as fine. Emotional trauma can be as dangerous as physical trauma. His body reacted as if it were under direct attack. If that level of stress continues, the next collapse may not be so forgiving. His tone shifted, a quiet reprimand that did not need more words. Can I see him? Celine asked. In a moment, the doctor replied. We had to sedate him lightly so his system could calm down. He is still in that foggy space between sleep and waking. He glanced again in Naomi's direction, as if finally noticing her. And you are, he asked. Naomi straightened her shoulders. I work in his house, she said. I was there when he went down. I called for help. There was no title that felt right. Maid sounded too small for what she had done. Employee sounded too cold. Protector sounded presumptuous. You did the right thing, the doctor said with a nod that was kind but brisk. Thank you for acting quickly. He turned back to Celine. Only one visitor at a time for now. Celine moved forward in a rush. Naomi watched her go, jaw tight. She did not fight it. She knew how these places worked. Legal ties first. Emotional ties could sit outside and pray. The doors swallowed Celine and the doctor. Naomi sank back into her chair. Her hands shook as she pressed them together in her lap. She had seen plenty of men undone by betrayal. Growing up in Roxbury, she had watched neighbors crumble when lovers left, when jobs vanished, when promises turned out to be pretty lies wrapped in cheap gold. She had seen men numb themselves with bottles and powders until their hearts simply stopped from the weight of every unspoken hurt. But she had never watched it happen in real time, in a bedroom that smelled of expensive candles, on a carpet that probably cost more than a year of rent in the places she had lived. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her younger sister, Joy. You okay, sis? You never call this early. Naomi stared at the screen. She typed slowly. My boss collapsed. Be at the hospital for a while. Pray for him. A moment later, the reply appeared. You always looking out for everyone else. Naomi, who looking out for you? She locked the phone. Who was looking out for her? Certainly not Celine. In her first months working for the Cross family, Naomi had thought she could stay invisible, clean the marble, polish the silver, leave before anyone remembered her name. But she listened. It was hard not to. Big houses echoed, voices carried through vents and stairwells and open doors that people forgot they had left ajar. She had heard laughter that did not sound like love. She had heard Lucas's voice in the hallway late at night, smooth and slow, far from the boisterous tone he used at gatherings. She had heard hushed words on the balcony, the clink of a second champagne glass when Adrian was out of town. She had seen a tie on the back of a chair that did not belong to the man who paid her. Naomi had not wanted to believe what those puzzle pieces spelled out. She had given Celine more chances in her mind than Celine had ever earned. The first time she had stumbled into something undeniable. She had been vacuuming the guest wing late in the evening. The door to the private office had been left slightly open. Voices spilled out. You worry too much, Lucas had said. Even if someone hears something, who will they believe, the woman married to the billionaire or the girl scrubbing his floors? Naomi is not stupid, Celine had replied. She looks at me differently when you are here. Then get rid of her, Lucas had said lightly. You know you can. Naomi had stepped back so fast she almost tripped over the vacuum cord. The next day, Celine had called her into the kitchen with the smooth smile she used for guests she did not like. I hear you were in the guest wing last night, Celine had said. You know you are not supposed to clean there after 9 unless we ask. Yes, ma'am, Naomi had replied quietly. Celine had studied her. Mr. Cross trusts you, she had said. He thinks you are loyal. I hope you stay that way. I would hate to have to fire you for something as small as curiosity. There had been no raised voice, no outright threat, just an icy sweetness that made Naomi's stomach twist. From that day, Naomi had kept her eyes down and her ears tuned. She started carrying an old second-hand phone in her apron pocket, not for calls, but for its cracked little camera and its tiny recording app. She told herself she would never use it. She told herself she was only protecting her job. Now she wondered if she had waited too long. The door swung open again. Celine came out, eyes red, makeup fixed, phone already in her hand. "How is he?" Naomi asked, standing before she could stop herself. Celine blinked at her, as if surprised she was still there. "He will live," Celine said. "They want to keep him for observation. Something about more tests." She said it like they were talking about a car that needed more diagnostic work. "Can I see him?" Naomi asked. Celine hesitated. "I do not know if that is appropriate," she said. The doctor said, "family." Her tone made it clear which word she thought did not apply. Naomi swallowed the reflexive reply. If family was defined by vows alone, then the woman who broke those vows still held the title. A nurse at the station had been listening. She stepped closer. "Mrs. Cross," she said, "your husband is still sedated. If this is his household staff and she was there when he collapsed, it may actually help him to wake and see a familiar caring face. We see this all the time." Celine's jaw tightened. For a moment, Naomi thought she would refuse just to prove she could. Then the calculation flickered again. "Fine," Celine said. "A few minutes." Naomi followed the nurse through the doors, heart thudding. The room was half dark, blinds drawn halfway against the morning light. Machines hummed and clicked softly. Adrian lay on the bed, skin paler than she had ever seen it, hospital gown replacing the tailored shirt he had worn that morning. Lines ran from his arms to bags that dripped clear fluid. Small patches on his chest connected to monitors that traced the fragile story of his heart in green lines. Naomi stepped closer, her shoes soundless on the linoleum. "Mr. Cross," she whispered. He did not answer. The sedative held him in that suspended place where the mind drifts and the body rests. She moved to his side and gently took his hand in both of hers. The contrast always struck her. Her hands, calloused and rough from years of cleaning, wrapped around his, smooth and long-fingered. The hand of a man who had signed contracts, not lifted crates. "You scared me today," she murmured, forgetting for a moment that the nurse could hear. "I thought you were fixing to leave us right there on that carpet." Her thumb brushed over his knuckles. "You remember the day you hired me?" she asked softly. "You said you liked that I looked you in the eye. You said people who scrub floors still have spines. Well, I am standing up for you now. I tried to stop you at that door. I am sorry I could not." The monitor beeped steadily. She leaned closer. "I know what she did," Naomi whispered, voice shaking. "I know what your friend did too. I have known for a while. I was scared. Scared to lose this job. Scared no one would believe me over them. But watching you lying on this bed, because your heart could not carry all that betrayal alone, I swear to you, if I get another chance, I will not stay quiet." The nurse pretended not to hear, busying herself with the chart. Adrian's eyelids fluttered once. His fingers twitched slightly in her grasp. Like a man reaching out in a dream he was not ready to leave. Naomi's breath caught. "There you go," she whispered. "You fight your way back. Do not let the people who hurt you be the ones who bury you too." When her time was up, she stepped back reluctantly. Outside, the hallway stretched long and bright. Celine waited near the door, arms folded. "Well?" she asked sharply. "Did he say anything?" Naomi shook her head. "No, ma'am. He's still half asleep." Celine sighed in visible relief, as if some confession might have slipped out in front of witnesses. "Go home for today," Celine said briskly. "The hospital will call me if anything changes. We will reevaluate your hours once he is back." Naomi heard the unspoken threat. "Once I have had time to decide if I can still control you?" She did not argue. She walked out of the hospital into the cool air, the city humming with people who had no idea Billionaire's heart had cracked under the weight of a betrayal that would soon spill far beyond the walls of his house. She did not know it yet, but the next time she stepped into a building filled with polished floors and stiff chairs for Adrian Cross, it would not be a hospital. It would be a courtroom, and she would not be mopping its floors. She would be standing in the back row, holding a worn folder to her chest, ready to decide whether she would finally stop being silent. 2 months passed. If you had seen Adrian Cross walking into his office in the glass tower downtown, you might have thought nothing had changed. His suit was still precise, his posture still straight, his hair still perfectly in place. But the man himself had shifted. The collapse had left more than a line in his medical record. It had left a question in his eyes that never quite went away. He moved through board meetings like a ghost. He signed papers without their weight reaching him. He went home to a house that felt like a museum version of his life. Celine stayed at first. She cried in all the right rooms. At the hospital bedside. In front of the therapist the company insisted he see. At the family brunch, Adrian's sister forced them to attend. "I made a mistake," she repeated. "It did not mean anything. We can fix this. We can be stronger." Adrian listened with the same expression he gave to earnings reports. Politely interested, entirely distant. He did not yell. He did not throw anything. He did not even move out immediately. He simply changed the locks on his heart. Naomi watched it all from the edges of the room she cleaned. She noticed the small details. The way Adrian stopped wearing his wedding ring at home, but left it on for public events. The way he paused before sitting at the dinner table, as if the chair might betray him as well. The way he began spending more time in his home office with the door half open, eyes fixed not on the screens, but on the framed photograph of his parents that sat on the shelf. They had come from nothing, he had once told Naomi. His father had worked 2 jobs. His mother had stretched every dollar like magic. They had taught him that trust was the real currency of any life worth living. Now trust was the one thing he could not locate. One afternoon, Naomi was dusting the bookshelf when she heard his voice from the doorway. "You do not have to keep that picture so clean," he said. She turned to see him watching her. "Yes, I do," Naomi replied. "They look at you every day from this little frame. They deserve to see clearly." A faint curve tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You think they would be proud of me right now?" he asked. The question landed heavy. Naomi set the cloth down. "I think they would be proud you are still standing," she said. "Broken and standing is still standing." He studied her for a moment. "You tried to stop me that morning," he said quietly. "At the door." Her throat tightened. "Yes, sir." "Why?" he asked. "You did not owe me that." Naomi shifted her weight. "You gave me a job when nobody else would look twice at my application," she said. "You paid my sister's tuition when you found out she got into school. You do not flash it around, but you help people. I saw enough good in you that I could not let you walk up those stairs without trying to keep you from breaking." He looked away. "Too late for that," he murmured. Maybe it was too late for the marriage, but it was not too late for something else. The first official blow did not come from Celine. It came from the state. 3 weeks after his return to work, Adrian was in his office when 2 investigators and a uniformed officer stepped through the door. "Mr. Cross," the lead investigator said, holding up a folder and a badge. "We have a warrant to search your premises in relation to an ongoing financial crimes investigation." Adrian blinked. "There must be some mistake," he said. "What investigation?" "Preliminary evidence suggests misappropriation of funds within Crosswell Capital," the investigator replied. "Specifically charity accounts associated with the Crosswell Hope Initiative." It felt like the room tilted. The Crosswell Hope Initiative was his pride, a branch of his company that funded scholarships, small business grants, neighborhood projects. The part of the empire that helped him sleep at night. "Who would accuse me of something like that?" Adrian asked. The investigator flipped a page. "We cannot disclose the identity of the whistleblower at this stage," he said. Adrian's mind raced. The board arrival. He had no idea. While they searched, he called his usual lawyer, a polished corporate attorney named Weston Graves. The man arrived within the hour, calm and confident, with a briefcase that looked like it had never seen a scratch. "Adrian, I need you to relax," Weston said. "These things happen all the time when you are successful. Paperwork gets misinterpreted. Someone wants a payout." "Are there missing funds?" Adrian asked. Weston adjusted his tie. "There are movements that look unusual to a person who does not understand the structure of offshore entities," he said. "That did not answer my question," Adrian replied. Weston sighed. "There are transfers," he admitted. "Several large ones from the Crosswell Hope accounts to a private holding company. On paper, it appears controlled by you." Adrian stared at him. I never authorized that, he said. Then someone forged your authority, Weston replied, which is what we will argue. For now, do not speak about this to anyone but me. Not the board, not the press, not staff. His gaze flicked meaningfully to Naomi, who stood in the hallway with a tray of coffee she had been about to bring in before the officers arrived. Their eyes met. For the first time, Naomi saw doubt there. Not doubt in the facts, doubt in her, as if she might be the one to run and sell a story to the highest bidder. She swallowed hard. I will keep everything clean, she said softly. That is what I do. Weston filed motions, gave statements, made calls. The state filed charges. The story hit the news. It erupted like a match tossed into dry grass. Billionaire philanthropist accused of robbing his own charity board expresses shock. Anonymous source claims luxury purchases funded by money meant for children. Adrian watched his reputation burn in headlines while he sat in a chair at his own kitchen table. Celine moved through the house like a shadow trying to decide which way the light would fall. Maybe you should step down for now, she suggested one evening, voice soft, fingers tracing the rim of her wineglass. Announce it is for the good of the company. Show humility. People like that. Did you go to the press? He asked without looking at her. Her breath hitched. How could you even think that? She demanded. Because you already betrayed everything else, he thought, but did not say. Instead, he stood and walked away. In her small room on the top floor, Naomi opened the old second-hand phone she had hidden in a shoebox at the back of her closet. The storage was almost full. Inside were audio files labeled only by dates and a few grainy photos of documents left on desks and tables longer than they should have been. She scrolled to one taken 3 months earlier, Celine's home office, a printed sheet left half covered by a folder. Something in the numbers had caught Naomi's eye. The account name at the top read Hope Fund Transfer. The signature at the bottom looked like Adrian's, but the pen strokes felt wrong even to someone who only saw his signature on holiday cards. She had snapped a picture quickly, heart pounding. Another file, an audio clip she had recorded by accident when she leaned against the wall outside the office. Phone in her apron pocket still recording from a call. Lucas's voice again. The beauty of it is that the board will never know, he had said. It looks like philanthropy. Then it looks like a bad decision. No one ever suspects the wife who cried beside her husband when he launched the initiative. You are sure the accounts cannot be traced back to me? Celine had asked. They point to him, Lucas replied. That is what you wanted. Is it not a clean exit with enough money to live anywhere you like? Naomi listened to the recording now, stomach twisting. This was no longer about an affair. This was about a crime. She thought about taking it straight to the police. Then she imagined Celine's smooth voice at a hearing, describing Naomi as a bitter worker who had been fired, making up stories to extort money. Fear clawed at her throat. People like Naomi and Joy did not get believed easily. One mistake and she would be the one in a cell, not the woman who had conspired to destroy a man's name. Still, the folder of printed screenshots and transcribed recordings grew. Naomi took a second job at night in a diner to pay for a cheap printer and paper. She printed everything, labeled it by date, kept it in an old worn folder that had once held her community college acceptance letter, the one she had never gotten to use. She hid the folder behind the cleaning supplies in the small closet off the back hallway at the estate. It sat there like a secret heartbeat. The day of the arraignment arrived. Adrian walked into the courthouse flanked by Weston on one side and flashes from cameras on the other. Naomi stood among the small crowd gathered near the steps. She kept her uniform and apron folded in a tote bag at her feet. There was something important about being here as Naomi, not simply as the maid. Reporters shouted questions. Mr. Cross, did you steal from your own charity? Do you have anything to say to the families who trusted you? Is it true your wife is considering divorce? Celine did not walk beside him. She arrived separately, polished and composed, greeting a few reporters with a tight smile. Inside the courtroom, Adrian sat at the defense table while Weston murmured instructions. Say only what I tell you to say, Weston whispered. We plead not guilty. We request bail. We go home. The real fight comes later. Adrian's voice sounded hollow when he answered the judge. Not guilty. Bail was set. He paid without blinking. As he turned to leave, he noticed Naomi seated in the back row, hands clasped, eyes never leaving him. A strange steadiness settled over him. After the hearing, outside in the hallway, Naomi approached cautiously. "You did not have to come," Adrian said. "Yes, I did," she replied. "Somebody needed to walk in here believing you." He studied her face. "I appreciate that," he said. He started to turn away, then paused. "Naomi," he asked quietly, "if you ever saw anything in that house that could help me right now, you would tell me, would you not?" Her heart lurched. This was the question she had been dreading. She met his eyes. "I have eyes, sir," she said, "and ears. I have seen and heard things I wish I had not. But I did not have proof anyone would accept. Until recently." His expression changed. "Proof," he echoed. She looked around. The hallway buzzed with people and voices, and the echo of other lives in trouble. "I cannot talk here," she said, "but I can show you something. When they let you breathe for more than 5 minutes." He nodded once. "Tomorrow," he said, "my office, before sunrise. The world does not crowd me that early." She almost smiled. "Then I will be there before the world wakes up," she replied. That night, Naomi went home, took the worn folder from its hiding place, and slid it into her tote bag. For the first time since she had started collecting those pieces, she felt their real weight. They were not just proof of wrongs done in whispered hallways. They were the beginning of a defense no one but her seemed willing to build. She did not know that in a few weeks, when his expensive lawyer decided his image mattered more than his client's life, and walked away at the worst possible moment, that folder and the woman holding it would be all Adrian had left, and that a quiet sentence spoken in the back of a courtroom would change everything. The courtroom buzzed with low conversation as people settled into hard wooden benches. The trial had drawn more attention than anyone expected. A billionaire accused of stealing from a charity that fed children made for easy headlines. Commentators debated his guilt over morning coffee. Strangers chose sides based on nothing but their feelings about wealth and power. Naomi sat in the last row, apron still tied around her waist because she had come straight from the house. She clutched the worn folder against her chest so tightly her knuckles ached. At the front, Adrian sat at the defense table alone for a moment, eyes on the polished surface. There were new lines around his mouth. The last weeks had not been kind. Beside him, Weston shuffled papers, glancing repeatedly at his phone. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Naomi did too, stomach twisting. "Court is now in session," the bailiff announced. They went through the motions. The clerk called the case. The prosecutor stood and addressed the court, summarizing the state's accusations. Over a period of 18 months, funds totaling more than $8 million were diverted from the Crosswell Hope Initiative into private accounts, she said. These movements benefited the personal lifestyle of the defendant. Travel, luxury purchases, private holdings. We will show a pattern of deception and misuse of trust. Naomi watched Adrian's shoulders tighten. When it was time for the defense to speak, Weston rose slowly. Then something strange happened. Instead of addressing the jury, Weston turned toward the judge with a carefully composed face. "Your Honor," he said, "before we proceed, I need to place something on the record." Every head in the room turned toward him. "I have advised my client that in my professional opinion, the current evidence makes acquittal unlikely." Weston continued, "I have also recommended a plea deal which he has refused. Given this disagreement on strategy and other constraints on my schedule, I must request leave to withdraw as counsel." The words fell like stones into a still pond. Naomi's breath caught. Adrian stared at him, disbelief raw on his face. "Withdraw," the judge repeated. "At this stage of the proceedings, this case has been on the docket for months, Mr. Graves." Weston clasped his hands, lips pressed together, in an expression that suggested regret without any real weight. "I understand the timing is not ideal," he said. "However, my client has rejected every piece of legal advice I have offered. He insists on a path I cannot ethically endorse." "That is not true," Adrian burst out. "You told me to admit to something I did not do." The judge held up a hand. "Mr. Cross, you will speak only when addressed." Adrian clenched his jaw. Naomi's heart pounded. The prosecutor spoke up. "Your Honor, the state objects to any withdrawal that would delay this trial further," she said. "Witnesses have been summoned. Resources have been committed. We are ready to proceed." The judge leaned back, studying Weston. Mr. Graves, you are an experienced attorney, he said. You took this case, enjoyed the publicity of representing a high-profile client, and now, on the morning we select a jury, you wish to step away because your client insists on maintaining his innocence. That is not a strategic disagreement. That is the entire point of defense counsel. A few people in the gallery murmured. Weston flushed slightly. With respect, Your Honor, there are also conflicts in my schedule that make continued representation impractical, he added. I have other clients whose matters require my attention. Translation? He had better paying, easier work. Naomi's grip tightened on the folder. The judge sighed. Mr. Cross, he said, turning his attention to Adrian, do you consent to this request for withdrawal? Adrian looked between the judge and his lawyer. You want me to agree to be left without counsel on the day I'm supposed to fight for the rest of my life? He asked quietly. I am asking if you agree that this professional relationship is no longer viable, the judge replied. Something in Adrian's expression hardened. He glanced back over his shoulder. His gaze found Naomi in the last row. For a moment, the noise of the room faded. It was just the two of them again in a hallway at dawn when she had laid out the contents of the folder on his desk. He had listened then. He had seen the recording transcripts, the bank printouts, the pictures of signatures that did not match his own. He had heard Lucas admit on a grainy audio file that the shell company had been set up in Celine's name and linked to accounts far from any charity. He had watched his wife's face when he confronted her in private the next day. She had not denied what he played for her. She had only accused him of violating her privacy. If they go down, you go down with us, she had said quietly. Those accounts were set up in your network. Your name is on the papers. Do you really think any jury will believe your maid over me? Now in the courtroom, Adrian looked at the man about to leave him and the woman who had stayed. No, Your Honor, he said finally. I do not consent, but apparently my consent does not matter to Mr. Graves. Weston shifted uncomfortably. The judge weighed his options. I am inclined to deny the motion, he said. However, I will take a brief recess to review case law on involuntary withdrawal at this stage. Court will stand in recess for 15 minutes. He banged the gavel. The room erupted into hushed conversation. Adrian sank onto his chair, shoulders slumping. Weston leaned toward him. This is not personal, he said. You would not take my advice. I cannot drag my name through a case you are determined to lose. Naomi could not listen to another word. Something inside her snapped. She stood. The bench creaked. She did not even feel her legs move. One moment she was gripping the worn folder in the back row. The next she was walking down the aisle, each step landing with more certainty than she felt. Naomi, Adrian said under his breath, eyes widening. The bailiff stepped toward her. Mom, you need to return to your seat, he said. She did not stop. Her voice came out before her fear could catch it. I will defend him, she said. The words were not loud, but they sliced through the room all the same. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Every eye followed the young black woman in a simple dress and flour-stained apron as she walked straight toward the front of the courtroom, clutching a battered folder like it was made of steel. The judge, who had been about to stand, froze instead. Mom, he said, his brow furrowing. Who are you? Naomi swallowed. My name is Naomi Brooks, she said, forcing her voice to steady. I clean Mr. Cross's house. I have done so for 3 years. I was there when he collapsed from what your doctor called emotional shock. I was there when they accused him of stealing from the charity he loves. I have seen things and heard things and gathered proof because no one else with money or power seemed interested in the truth. She took a breath. And I am telling you today, in front of everybody, that this man did not do what they are trying to put on him. A murmur rippled through the gallery. The judge's eyes softened for a fraction of a second before he rearranged his features into the neutral mask of his position. Ms. Brooks, he said, this is a court of law. A defendant in a felony case must be represented by licensed counsel or represent himself. You cannot simply declare that you will defend him. I know I am not a lawyer, Naomi replied. I did not get to finish school. Life got in the way. But I know right from wrong. I know a frame job when I see one. And I know what is in this folder. She lifted it slightly. If every lawyer he pays is more interested in protecting their brand than his life, Then at least let the court hear what I have to give. If he chooses to speak for himself, you can at least let the truth speak with him. The judge studied her. You understand that evidence must be admitted properly, he said. Chain of custody, foundation, cross-examination. I understand enough to know that if you send this man to prison without hearing what someone like me has been brave enough to collect, then this room is only pretending to be about justice, Naomi answered. The silence that followed was heavy. Adrian's eyes burned. Your Honor, he said slowly, standing. If Mr. Graves wishes to abandon me, then let him file whatever motion he wants. I will represent myself if I must. Let this court swear Ms. Brooks in as a witness, and let us see whether the story you have been told holds up when the whole truth is on the floor. Weston bristled. Your Honor, this is absurd, he protested. He cannot possibly represent himself in a case of this complexity. And this woman is clearly biased. She is his employee. And my friend, Adrian added quietly. The judge tapped his gavel once, not in full force, but as a warning for the noise to settle. Mr. Graves, he said, your lack of faith in your own client is noted. I am granting your motion to withdraw, but not with the clean conscience you hoped for. You will remain in this courtroom as a member of the bar while I advise the defendant of his rights. Weston opened his mouth, then closed it, jaw tight. The judge turned to Adrian. Mr. Cross, he said, you have the right to appointed counsel if you cannot afford one, although I suspect that is not your situation. You have the right to seek new counsel and request a continuance. You also have the right to waive counsel and represent yourself, which I strongly advise against. Do you understand these rights? Adrian nodded slowly. I understand, he said. I also understand that the people accusing me of robbing children are counting on delay. They are counting on my name staying in the mud. They are counting on me being too broken to stand. I will not give them that satisfaction. His gaze flicked to Naomi. If the law allows you to call her as a witness and to consider what she has gathered, then I will stand here myself and ask the questions your court needs to hear, he said. I waive my right to counsel. The judge sighed. Very well, he said. The record will reflect that the defendant has knowingly and voluntarily elected to represent himself. Mrs. Brooks stepped forward. Naomi's legs shook, but she made them move. The bailiff held out a Bible. Raise your right hand, he instructed. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Naomi looked at the book, then at Adrian. I do, she said. She took the witness chair. Her heart pounded against her ribs so hard she wondered if the microphone would pick it up. Adrian approached the lectern with the careful steps of someone walking a tightrope for the first time. Ms. Brooks, he began, voice trembling just a little. How long have you worked in my home? 3 years, she replied. During that time, have you had access to the parts of the house where my wife and Lucas Hale often met? He asked. Yes, she said. He nodded. Tell the court when you first suspected that something more than friendship was happening and whether you ever heard them discuss my charity accounts. She told the story, the late-night voices, the careless remarks in the office, the threats. The prosecutor objected. The judge overruled some, sustained others. Adrian found a rhythm. He had negotiated contracts that would make most people dizzy. That skill did not vanish. It simply had a new stage. Naomi presented the recordings. The court listened to Lucas's voice explaining how the shell company would route funds away from the charity. They heard Celine ask whether the accounts could be traced back to her. They saw the bank records Naomi had printed and the photos of forged signatures. The prosecutor tried to rattle her on cross-examination. Ms. Brooks, you admit you are not trained in finance, the prosecutor said. You have no formal education in law. You are basing your conclusions on scraps you overheard and things you were never meant to see. Naomi met her gaze steadily. That is right, she said. I am not trained in rocking suits and speaking in fancy words, but I do know what I heard. I know what I saw, and I know that the numbers in those accounts do not lie, even if people do. The prosecutor asked why she had waited. Naomi answered with painful honesty. Because women like me get painted as liars whenever we speak against people with money, she said. Because I needed that job. Because I was afraid. But when I saw him on that hospital floor, I realized my fear was helping the people hurting him. So I stopped letting fear talk louder than my conscience. The jury listened. Some of them shifted in their seats in ways that told Naomi her words had landed. When Lucas took the stand later, his confidence began to crumble under Adrian's questions, sharpened by the very skills that had once built an empire. "Is that your voice on this recording?" Adrian asked him. Lucas swallowed. "It sounds like me," he admitted. "Did you set up the shell company named LS Holdings?" Adrian pressed. "I might have advised on its structure," Lucas hedged. "And did you or did you not instruct the accounting department to route transfers from the Hope Initiative accounts under my digital authorization while I was in overseas meetings?" Adrian continued. The judge allowed the questions. The answers piled up. By the time Celine took the stand, the room felt different. The easy narrative of a greedy billionaire had been replaced by a naughtier story, one of vanity and betrayal, and a woman who thought the world would always believe her tears more than another woman's truth. When Adrian asked her if she had ever benefited from the diverted funds, she hesitated. "I do not know every detail of our finances," she said. Naomi watched the jurors' faces. They did not believe that. They had seen her shoes, her jewelry, her quiet arrogance. In closing, Adrian did not give a polished speech. He stood before the jury, tie loose, face tired. "I built my company on numbers and trust," he said. "I trusted the wrong people. That is on me. I failed to see what was happening under my own roof. That is on me too. But there is a difference between being foolish in love and being a thief. The people who stole from those children are the ones who signed those transfers and opened those accounts, not the man whose name they used." He looked back at Naomi. "If you take nothing else from what you saw today, take this. The only reason you know the truth is because the woman who cleans my floors decided her conscience was worth more than her fear. She stood up when people paid to protect me, walked away. If this court values justice at all, it should listen to her more than it ever listened to them." The judge gave his instructions. The jury retired. Hours passed. Naomi sat in the hallway, folder on her lap, even though everything inside had already been shown. Adrian paced down the corridor and back. When the jury returned, the air in the courtroom crackled. The four persons stood. "On the charge of misappropriation of charitable funds," he read, "we find the defendant, Adrian Cross, not guilty." Naomi's lungs filled all at once, like she had been underwater this entire time and finally reached the surface. Adrian closed his eyes. The judge dismissed the jury with formal words that barely touched the charged air. The prosecutor began planning an investigation into the accounts of Ellis Holdings. Officers approached Lucas and Celine with quiet words about further questions. Amid the noise, Adrian turned to Naomi. She stood at the end of the aisle, hands still wrapped around that tired folder, apron strings twisted at her waist. He walked toward her slowly. "You saved my life," he said simply. She shook her head, tears finally spilling. "I just told the truth," she whispered. "A truth you collected when everyone else chose comfort," he replied. "I will never be able to repay that." He paused. "But I can try." In the weeks that followed, the world moved on to other scandals. Another public figure fell. Another story took their place on the front page. Inside a small law school in the city, a new student sat in the back of a classroom, notebook open, eyes bright. Naomi Brooks. Her tuition was paid in full by a scholarship she had not applied for. The paperwork simply arrived with a note on top. "For the woman who defended me when money and power failed." At the bottom, a signature she now knew better than any contract. Adrian Cross. She smiled, smoothing the edge of the folder she still carried in her bag. Not as a symbol of fear anymore, as a reminder. Sometimes the person everyone expects to stay quiet is the one who changes everything. Sometimes the maid at the back of the room is the first one to say the words that matter most. "I will defend him."